A lot of people who believe what most people believe and have been taught to respect law and authority and yada, 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 and have been trained into statism will respond to this by saying, he's so hateful and he's so intolerant and it's so divisive. And that shows just how profoundly warped their perception of reality really is. And I can understand why it sounds like I spend so much time being against things, because I am against things. But the reason I'm against things is not from hatred. It's not from intolerance. It's not from trying to be divisive. It's the exact opposite. Government and the belief in authority and democracy and all the things I was talking about, those are based on hatred and intolerance. The word tolerate doesn't mean you like it, doesn't mean you approve of it. It just means you allow it to exist. Nobody who votes for a political master is tolerant. Nobody. Because you are always trying to empower somebody to force your will and your preferences and your values onto others. That isn't tolerance. And the fact that you've been taught that, well, if you do it this way and call it democracy and vote and it's legal, then it's okay. No, it's not. That's the mythology you were taught to trick you into advocating evil and thinking you're compassionate and tolerant. And it's mostly the political left that loves to wear the label of compassionate and tolerant. And I love to point out to them, yeah, you're caring and you love other people and you voted Democrat and you like the welfare state. And so you're some of the people who voted to have me put in a cage for a year for not paying tribute to your political masters. Thanks for being so compassionate. I really appreciate it. And of course, Republicans do the same thing. All candidates do the same thing. Everybody who votes for a politician wants me violently forced to fund whatever they think the state should do. And to be open and fair, I did that too when I was a statist. I voted for people to be robbed for what I thought was important, what I thought was needed. Meanwhile, I would bash them for trying to vote for people to rob me for what they thought was needed because I was a total freaking hypocrite, as every single statist is. Eventually, I noticed the contradiction, I noticed the hypocrisy, and I started to whittle down what I believed in. Government, all right, yeah, involuntary taxes, that's not okay. And it can't really have a monopoly, because if somebody else says, well, I'll exercise the right of self-defense for you for a fee, you know, they have the right to do that. So it doesn't have a monopoly, it doesn't have a territory, it doesn't have... And I whittled away and said, there, now I have the ideal government, and said, that's not government. I whittled off all of the things that made it count as government, and then I realized I don't believe in government anymore. I can't. It's impossible for it to be legitimate and moral. Now, I talked before at the beginning about how a lot of people, including me at other times, want to be gentle and invite people to think about concepts, and they say, like, don't be offensive and don't offend people. I'm really glad to have a bunch of people doing it different ways. And I do it different ways myself. So I don't at all think everybody should do it the way I'm doing it. No, everybody should do it whatever way they think is best, whatever way they're best at, and whatever gets the best results. I happen to believe that if nothing else works, people should feel guilty. They should feel bad. They should feel insulted and condemned for advocating evil. Why does war happen? Because people worship the troops. And people feel good about signing up to become the troops. If half their neighbors said, ew, you're joining that violent, evil gang, well, don't ever talk to me again, you psycho, they wouldn't do it. They need the peer pressure that says, what you're doing is fucking evil, stop it. And if you can gently talk them into that beforehand, outstanding. Then I don't need to offend them. But obviously, that hasn't stopped it yet. So if the choices are offend the hell out of them to make them maybe think, even if they get defensive, even if they hate me, by the way, I don't care if anybody hates me. If I can make them think about something and they think I'm the most horrible person in the world, I don't care. They thought about something. And they might change their mind. Incidentally, I know a lot of former Marines who are now anarchists, some who saw combat and some who didn't. And several of them have told me, yeah, I needed someone bashing the hell out of me because of all the worship and all the praise and everybody thanking me for my service. And now I know a bunch of former military people who are embarrassed as hell when somebody thanks them for their service. Like, who do you think I served? I didn't serve you by going and terrorizing people on the other side of the world and kicking in doors and pointing machine guns at people's faces. They weren't coming here. They weren't going to attack us. I was serving the giant ruling class and its corporate buddies, and that's all. And along that line, I highly recommend a book called War is a Racket by Smedley Butler, who was, at the time of his death, the most decorated Marine in history, who had like 30 years of combat experience and finally figured out, wow, I'm just a tool for some of the evilest people in the world. So sometimes I point to that because people say, well, if you haven't served, you can't criticize. And if I haven't been a serial killer, I can't criticize them either? That's an interesting standard. But these things that are felt sacred by people, the Constitution and the flag and yada yada, everything I just went out of my way to insult, that is the mind control, that is the indoctrination that is necessary for evil to continue, and it's why I bash it. You know, the whole notion of nationalism, and like my country's better and your country's that. You can't get giant groups of people to have wars with each other unless you fabricate a distinction. This is Team A, this is Team B. You know, imagine there aren't national boundaries and people are living their lives and somebody says, we really need to like go kill the people that live on the other side of the world. You say, what? What are you talking about? Like, instead of, well, we'll draw a line around them. That's called Russia. This is called the US. These people should all be scared of those people. Meanwhile, their ruling class is saying, these people should all be scared of those people. Nationalism is totally a divide and conquer tactic. Everything government does is based on fear and hatred and intolerance and divisiveness. They can't function any other way. Who the hell would say, yes, you can have power over me, if the guy didn't first say, something really, really scary is going to happen unless you give me power over you? They have to keep us afraid. Who the hell it would feel like, you know, we're safe, we're happy, everything's going fine. You know what we need is a big, violent, dominating psycho stealing our money and bossing us around. And so government and the belief in authority, that is what is intolerant. That is what is hateful. And here's the part I don't usually talk about, and I should more often. It's more fun to just rant and rail. First of all, what I hate is not the people. It is the ideas. It is the insane superstition of authority and government and all that goes along with it, all the political mythology we were taught. Why I bash those things? Yes, I'm very much against those things. But why? Why bother to be against them? I bash those things. I spend my whole life bashing those things in one way or another, not because I hate those people, but because I love humanity. And I see what humanity is supposed to be. And I see the millions of people kept in cages for having the wrong plant. And I see the hundreds and thousands or millions of people who are killed as a result of nationalism and authoritarianism. And I care about those people because they're human beings. I rail and rant and rave and get angry because those are human beings, real human beings, going through that, being subjected to that. And yeah, that pisses me off, and it makes me rant and rave because I have compassion, because I have empathy, because I actually love humanity. And ideas that are antithetical to humanity, ideas that are literally murdering millions of people, they have to be condemned. They have to be done away with. But I think it is worth pointing out why I do that and the love behind it. Because I may not sound very loving when I'm standing up here insulting everything that so many people hold dear, but it really is from that. It's because what people hold dear, they were trained to hold dear, to make them into slaves, to make them into agents of evil, to make them into cheerleaders for authoritarian domination. And that's not okay. And that's not what humanity is supposed to be. That's why I bash this. That's why I rail against it pretty much 24 hours a day. Because I know what humanity is supposed to be. Because I can imagine a world of peaceful coexistence, like we all can. and because I see what we have instead, and it's evil, and it's horrendous, and it has to change, I bash authoritarianism because I love humanity. That is why I insult people's bad beliefs. That is why I'm an anarchist. Thank you.